Hello, and thank you for joining us for the inaugural Zscaler APAC Virtual Cxo Summit, reducing the risk and complexity of secure cloud deployment. If you have any questions throughout today, please let us know. For any technical questions, reach out to cxosummit@zscaler.com. This is a public session, and the opinions expressed in this discussion by third parties are solely those of the guest and not necessarily those of Zscaler. Zscaler does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information disclosed during this discussion. We will be sharing the recording after. Please share and follow using the hashtag Zscaler Cxo Summit. We are very excited to have you be a part of today's conversation. There are a few ways for you to participate, so please participate by submitting your questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen and responding to polling questions throughout the session. You will now see your first live poll now. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you and welcome SVP of Cloud Protection, Rich Campagna.
Thank you, Julia, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the inaugural Zscaler APAC Virtual Cxo Summit. The new enterprise Cxo priorities: protect valuable data, optimize performance, and preserve the environment. Today's session, I think, is a fantastic topic. We're going to be talking about public cloud security. The session title: Reducing the Risk and Complexity of a Secure Cloud Deployment. This is a massively important topic for pretty much every organization in every industry across the planet. Right? Public cloud services spend is expected to reach over $330 billion next year, and that spend needs to be protected. Absolutely. So we have a couple different segments in today's session. We're going to hear from Zscaler's VP of Product Management, Moinul Khan. He's going to deconstruct a real-world breach, an actual breach that has happened, describing its genesis, development, impact, and then he's going to provide guidance on best practice, prevention, and response. He's also going to be introducing the Zscaler Cloud Protection Suite. He's going to demonstrate its ability to simplify and automate risk reduction in public cloud environments. We're going to see that demo at the tail end of the session here. But first, let's kick off our Cxo Perspectives Panel. I'm honored to have three esteemed guests here: Doug Hammond, the CISO for Uniting; Mukesh Chandramohan, Group CISO at Aditya Birla Capital; and John Rolfe, the General Manager for Cyber Risk and Resilience at Ventia. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I know I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions on the panel discussion, as I'm sure the audience is as well. So with that, let's just jump right in. I want to start by talking about the cloud journey a little bit that you folks have experienced, and in particular, what I observe in speaking with organizations is that these days, a couple of years ago, the question was, are various organizations going to go cloud or not? And now it seems that we're pretty much at the point where most organizations have at least some cloud presence, and oftentimes the starting point is what's known as a lift and shift strategy. Right, you pick a single cloud provider, or maybe move a couple of workloads into one of these cloud environments. It's a relatively simple change, and not too unlike one of your traditional data centers. But then over time, what a lot of organizations are starting to go through in terms of that next phase of the journey is that they're introducing, first of all, a multi-cloud strategy, which expands kind of the purview of your cloud footprint. And they begin to refactor their applications or rebuild applications to use more cloud native services. And I think, this is where I think a lot of the folks, that are tuned to the webinar are in their journey right now, is they're starting to make that shift to the second phase. So I'd love to hear, from the three of you folks, was that a part of your journey, and what security challenges has that second phase introduced for you as an organization? And I don't know, maybe I'll roll my dice here to see who can kick this one off. Doug, maybe I'll go with you. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rich. Yeah, so the current organization that I'm working for, Uniting, is fortunate to still only be in Azure, so we don't have a multi-cloud presence, but my previous organization had cloud workloads in multiple clouds. And the security challenge was simply put was that each cloud has a different set of tools that come standard. There's different ways of configuring them. There's interoperability challenges. There's authentication challenges and handoff between them. It just raises a huge level of complexity in terms of making sure that the standards that you've got are applied across the different cloud infrastructures and the on-prem.
Yeah, and I would say that even specific to Azure, at last count, last time I checked, Microsoft has more than 600 separate and distinct services listed for Azure, right? And I think what a lot of organizations tend to run into is that when those new services come out or when they change, what happens pretty much at any point in time, developers and your application teams want to jump on and use those services. So I'd say even if you're just in a single cloud provider, some of the challenges you just described can be a very big thing, to kind of wrap your head around.
Yeah, correct. And getting the skills in-house is almost impossible.
Yeah, we're going to talk about skills here in a second, but at first let's hear a little bit from maybe Mukesh. How about you? Your thoughts here?
Hi, Rich. Thanks. I completely agree. I think the second phase has put a lot of challenges in terms of having visibility. That's the first challenge for me when people are considering multi-cloud and multi-service provider when it comes to the cloud journey. Quite it's exciting, but at the same time, I think it opens a little different set of Pandora box of the open risk for an organization. Especially when it comes to multi-cloud, I think the visibility to a CISO or a CISO organization is the biggest challenge I would consider. The second is obviously the roles and responsibilities and clarity around that is also a big challenge, I would say, because the on-prem existing team considers a lot of things as part of the service provider's responsibilities. And service providers are clearly demarcating that what is their responsibility and what will be the client's responsibility when they onboard their journey on the cloud, especially on the public clouds like Amazon or Microsoft. These are the two big challenges, I would say. I think, as you rightly said, the third one is also like about the skill sets, but which we will talk about a little later.
Gotcha. Excellent. So, John, both of these guys, they kind of mentioned this sort of, seemingly complex, set of services across multiple cloud providers. What do you do when, a developer or an application team or whichever stakeholder inside of your organization comes to your team and says, hey, there's this brand new service that we want to spin up, or, we have, we've standardized on this cloud, but we see these services in these other clouds. How do you deal with that? I mean, that seems like a lot can be coming from a lot of different areas. What's sort of the process you might follow there?
Yeah, so Ventia is a relatively young organization which was only formed in about 2015, and we were spun out of another number of companies. So we actually took a cloud first strategy because that was the easiest and quickest way to actually spin up an organization of our size. But that came with its own difficulties with the ease of the business actually spinning up software as a service. And not necessarily coming through the correct channels. So when I actually joined the organization, it was really getting visibility of what services were in use, which services that had been formally assessed and which hadn't, and using technologies such as Zscaler to actually see the cloud services in use, and then being able to put controls around them was a great help. And then as we've matured, we've moved into a proper third-party risk management mechanism, so that the business can now actually come to us and actually ask us, we want to use this service. What are the risks, and we can then formally assess that and do our due diligence to actually ensure that the service is secure, meets meets our security standards, and more importantly meets our client requirements of where data is actually processed. That's one of the issues really in Australia, is the number of or the limited number of sort of software as a service that are hosting locally, and that's a big issue for our clients.
Gotcha. And so for new services, then you have kind of a formal approval process that those services go through that your team kind of checks off.
Yeah, so we've now implemented a formal vendor risk assessment where we're actually assessing the supply using a Cloud Security Alliance questionnaire to actually determine the security of that solution, and like I said, more importantly, where is the data actually hosted, where is the solution supported, and are there mechanisms in place to actually protect our client data.
Gotcha. So oftentimes these cloud vendors are innovating very rapidly, right? In fact, there was an announcement from Microsoft, I forget, maybe 2-3 months ago, where on a single day they introduced 250 new features, to various different services across Azure. How does that work with this approval process, and how do you possibly manage to stay on top of this rapidly shifting attack surface?
Yeah, Microsoft is a real challenge, because they introduce new functionality to something like Office 365, and it's on by default, and they know that they do it so that because otherwise, if it had to come through guys like us, we would take a more cautious approach, and we would potentially slow down the adoption of the users. So it is a real challenge to keep on top of the changes, and as we acquire different organizations, we've now moved into a multi-cloud strategy, and I have a small team because we're such a low margin business, so it's really making use of security consultancies to do periodic risk assessment on top of the sort of security governance that I've put in place internally. And being open to the business, so being accessible, so the business can actually come to us to say we want to use this SaaS service, rather than try not to get in the way so much.
Gotcha. How about you? Maybe you, Doug. Do you have a sort of an approval process similar to what John described for new services, or what happens when the business comes to you and say, "Hey, we want to use this new service that was just released to market"? What's your response typically?
Yeah, so we have a formal governance process, and that all new proposals that we're aware of go through. And to John's point, there is stuff that happens that never comes through the approval process, and that's one of the issues with cloud services, is it's very easy for the business to just procure that kind of quietly in the background without security or technology being involved. But for the things that we are aware of, we follow a formal approval process, and looking at the security associated with that is part of that. But for a lot of these, it's it comes with the services and controls that it comes with, and you have very little ability to influence or modify that. It is literally as a service, and you get what everybody else gets, and there isn't a lot of opportunity to influence that.
Gotcha. So as more and more of these services have made their way into your organization, how have you evolved the team? Right? Has it been that you've added a lot of net new resources, people on that are cloud native? Have you grown more some of these capabilities inside of the team?
Yeah, yeah, so absolutely not. We simply don't have the scale to bring on specific people with specific skills. So we procure those as a service as well. So we have a number of third parties that provide the 24/7 security operations type coverage, that manage the SOC and the SIEM, and we look to partners that have the skills that we need to support us, because again, with the cloud particularly, and I suppose it's true of most services these days, because they're on 24/7 and they can be attacked 24/7, you need to have a 24/7 team that's available, and to have that in-house is just simply unaffordable.
Okay. How about for you, Mukesh, as developing or acquiring the right talent to take on some of this new, cloud, security area, has that been a challenge for you? And anything unique or novel about how you've approached solving the challenge? Have you outsourced like Doug, or are you managing this in-house?
Yeah, I think we also have the challenge, but we address this in a two-prong approach. One is definitely, I think we have outsourced some part of the servicing, the operations to an outsourced partner who has better skills and better management capabilities, better understanding about the cloud, and having an appetite to continuously put learning curve over there. But parallelly, we also work out a strategy where we continue to upskill our existing employees and on-prem team who can manage partially some of those operations and shadow the outsourced partner. Because going forward in a long term, I don't think we can continue with an outsourced partner as a strategy. So we want to in-house it. So the upskilling is one of the strategy which we adopt for last 1.5 to 2 years. I think every month there was a separate training which was organized for on-prem teams as well, so that they are not completely out of the curve, while we continue to outsource some of the key operations to the expertise.
Gotcha. And that training, is that something you've developed internally? Do you look to third-party resources for maybe the cloud vendors?
So predominantly we use two different approaches. One is like the native training, which we get it from the native OEM itself. For example, related technologies and the securities which are available on Amazon, we get it from AWS and AWS partners. Similarly, for Azure, we do it with Azure, and for Google, we do it with Google. That's one aspect. Second is like we also have an expert, an outsourced partner who provides generic fundamentals about the cloud security and cloud onboarding based on the new technologies and new threat and attack surface, which is getting subversive. So that's something which we do it as a second. Third is about key security operational training, which we used to get it from our security partner as part of our SOC engagement.
Gotcha. So as you invest in this is something I've heard from a number of other organizations many times in the past, is that invest in some of these skills development for some of these folks, and then they become very attractive on the open market. Is that an issue that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, sometimes it happens, but I don't think we have a choice right now, right? In the market also, I think you don't have good skilled people on this technologies because it's keep on evolving, and the learning capability of the individuals matters a lot, right? It differs. If you go and ask for a cloud security engineer in the market today with 6 years experience, you don't get it in a market, right? It's a new age, and it is very difficult. So the only option which was left out for an organization is to continue to upskill for the resources who are already with you and who are partially managing the infrastructure. The advantage of this is like you get complete know-how about the ecosystem, the person who is managing both on-prem and the cloud, who has knowledge of both, so that he can get a holistic picture and actually submit the proposal to the management in case if something has to happen. So that advantage is there. Yes, of course, I think the talent crunch and the skill shortage is always a big challenge for us.
Yeah, as I think it is for organizations everywhere. I mean, we've had this skill shortage in information security for quite some time, it seems, even kind of predating the rise of cloud over the last 5 or 10 years. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the culture and process change that comes about as the result of moving to the cloud. Right. So what I'm seeing and hearing from organizations is that, as they kind of evolve through this cloud journey, it's not only kind of where they're hosting, their applications and services, but also the way they go about developing applications. And you see this gradual move towards more kind of oriented processes, which I think have some fantastic benefits for the agility and innovation in the business. But can also mean quite a bit of disruption from a security standpoint. So maybe John, have you seen some of this change firsthand, and what does it mean for adapting the way an InfoSec team kind of works when you start to see this change in process in the development side?
Yeah, so conceptually, it's quite a change when you don't have that perimeter any longer, and the complexity, especially when you've got multi-cloud as well. So from a security perspective, it's really having your detailed information security framework that sets out the all the requirements for security, so that and then making sure that developers and architects are well aware of the the standards and that are expected. Separation of duties is also pretty important as well, because it's so easy for someone to spin up a server and if they've got the right permissions to start making network rule changes in your cloud environment. So ensuring that you've still got that separation of duties, so that there's still the governance and the change control as they move from development into production. And then also using cloud-based security products to actually do continual vulnerability assessment of the solutions, monitoring changes in your environment to make sure that they're all approved and not actually changing your security risk beyond what's your acceptable level.
Gotcha. I hear often about this term shifting security left. Very big thing, right? Mukesh, tell us about that terminology and what it's meant for your organization.
So I think these changes are inevitable, right? So while we moved to a public cloud adoption, I think people started thinking about moving from agile methodology to DevOps, right? That's one of the prominent way to increase the productivity, speed, and get to market very fast. And the moment people started talking about DevOps, I think we immediately jumped in and we said that, why don't you make it as DevSecOps, right? Make security as part of the overall operations and ensure that there is no delay in the last minute or surprise in the last minute, so that which might derail or delay the project. So that's something which we have envisaged a little early, and we had defined a framework for DevSecOps in our environment the moment people started looking at public cloud adoption. And I think we have automated the complete process of DevSecOps, where we put the Dast and SAST tool in between the systems, and the whole workflow on the lifecycle moves through security before it moves to the productive environment. I think that's something which we have done it. And over the last 1 year, I think we have also put a lot of effort in creating training and awareness for our development teams, be it our internal teams or an outsourced development partners. For everybody, we have clearly given the training to understand how DevSecOps works, and the guidelines has been shared with them. And we also take compliance checklist from the application project managers whenever there is a production movement which happens. So it's a continuous process, and the Dast and SAST is incorporated as a part of the process, which automates and ensures that the relevant security controls are considered at the right time without any delay in the process.
So as you've injected some of these, checkpoints in the process for doing the code scanning and the like, have you run into any pushback from the developers? Any friction between the security team and the development team, or has that been pretty smooth as you've kind of added some of these checkpoints to the process?
Fortunately, we didn't have much of challenges, because I think in on-prem agile methodology also we have something called application security lifecycle process. The process actually have an intervention at every stage of SDLC, which gets into a secure SDLC. So we get involved even in on-premises, the process is followed, and which is little time consuming, I would say, while you consider the DevSecOps on the cloud. So obviously, I think the developer team and application team was very happy to actually consider this and actually onboard, because it's going to make the system very fast, and the processes can be easily adopted because it's almost semi-automated. And the control to do this is with application team. They don't need to come back to security team. They don't need to come to application security tester to do an VAPT exercise as it happens in the normal traditional way. So obviously, I think application team was very happy enough. I think initial hiccups was there, but I think we were working hands on hands, and together, I think we have made this as a success story. I think right now, I think it has gone very seamless, and I don't think application team has any issues or concerns of adopting a DevSecOps in the cloud.
Gotcha. Okay, so basically what you said there is, you've done your best to kind of automate and seamlessly inject this into their normal everyday, kind of work, and that's been what's sort of key to not hearing the pushback. I mean, they can make some of these decisions and solve these issues without coming back to your team, and
Sure.
that's been helpful. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, excellent. I think that's great perspective. So Doug, we had a question that has come in from the audience, and I think it's actually, perhaps good to address, right now, because I think it's somewhat on topic with what we're talking about here. So the question is, how could cloud, network, and security teams collaborate better to mitigate risk and help their organizations embrace change faster?
Yeah, I mean, it's good, and I think it echoes some of the comments that John and Mukesh were making earlier. The best and easiest is to have a clearly defined framework and requirements that everybody understands what success looks like from a security perspective, as well as everything else, and make it easy to comply. And your earlier question around friction was interesting. We've actually used friction to our advantage. So we have standard secure patterns that are pre-approved, and if the teams are developing according to those patterns, then it's really easy. We don't have to get involved. It's and it's nice and frictionless. If they believe that they are special in some way, then the friction levels go up, exponentially, depending on how difficult they're trying to make it for themselves, and that in itself ensures adherence to those patterns and standards. So that's the kind of the way we collaborate, and it's taking people on that journey as well. But the key, as I said to start off with, is to make sure that everybody is clear around the requirements and what success looks like, and kind of why we're doing what we're doing, and then that makes everything else far easier.
Okay, great. So it's pretty clearly communicated to them up front. These are the lanes within which we're going to leave you alone.
Correct.
If you get outside of it, then you have to deal with the Inquisition, right? Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I hear the same thing from a lot of organizations. Let's do our best. And I've now heard it from both of you guys, choice in a row, Doug and Mukesh, both similar kind of statements where you allow these teams to operate within a certain kind of bounds, and they make decisions on their own, and it's only when they veer out of those bounds. I mean, I think that leads to continued innovation on the developer, the applications team side, but then also perhaps frees your teams up to focus on other areas where perhaps they can't remove themselves from the situation. So it leads to greater efficiency all around, which I think is fantastic. Okay, I want to maybe change gears just a little bit here and talk about something that's a hot topic for pretty much every CISO on the planet, has been for a few years now, and that's been ransomware, right? So this continues to be a plague. It seems like every couple of months there's some massive ransomware outbreak of some sort, and as an industry, we seem to have not been able to really resolve this situation. But I think in a lot of ways, moving to the cloud can represent a fresh start for security, right? This is brand new architecture, brand new set of applications. And it's not very often that we get one of these fresh starts in technology and in security more specifically. So, and I know obviously it's more complicated than that. It's not a brand new fresh start for everything, but in many ways that can be an opportunity, right? So, what are some of the things that you think that security leaders, especially those that are just starting on this cloud journey, can do differently to help thwart this ransomware threat that has continued to be such a huge problem for so many organizations? John, I think I saw you kind of shaking your head a bit there as I asked that question. So maybe I'll start with you here. How do we get rid of this when we move to the cloud, or can we?
Well, I think we all wish that we can get rid of it, but certainly cloud has advantages in the ability that you to implement security controls. So when my organization was formed and I joined back in 2016, it was the quickest approach to actually get internet filtering at scale or email filtering at scale. But then it also has the risks. So with the move to Office 365, it's so easy to compromise someone's account. So we've really taken a kind of trust no one approach. So we're scanning content inbound, outbound, internally, so that we can actually have some confidence of the content as it moves around our network. And then also training users to spot the risks. They're the last line of defense, and actually training them in an entertaining and informing way, so that they're so it's relevant to securing their digital life and not just the corporation, and really extending my meager cybersecurity team with the wider workforce really, and using them to actually spot the risks. Probably one of the other big improvements that we made is really 24/7 endpoint detection and response. So that's our last line of defense. So if something does get through, we've got that. And then removal of admin rights when we rolled out Windows 10. That had quite a significant improvement on just the detections we were seeing. So really filtering the content, removal of admin rights, and training the users are probably really the three sort of the key things. And with the training, we've got probably a reliable cross section of the organization that we can trust to actually report suspicious incidents or phishing emails, and then we've built quite a robust process for the mechanism for them to actually report those, and then to actually alert us if we believe it's an active threat or not, so that we can then actually step in and take the relevant activity. But certainly removal of admin rights was a big improvement with Windows 10 rollout.
I'm sure it is. Sometimes the simplest sounding things can have the biggest impact, though I'm sure that removal of admin rights was not without its fair share of revolt from some vocal users.
Absolutely, it is difficult to remove people's privilege, because they feel like people aren't trusted. But when you actually pull that back to a valid risk, and also the obligations that our clients expect of us, the business actually then starts to understand why we're doing it. It's not just security just being the killjoys, but we're actually doing it to serve our clients.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like you're covering a lot of the bases there. Doug, anything differently than you're doing here?
So I just wanted to add to John's comment and the pushback that the users come back with in terms of don't you trust me? And my response always to that is it's not that I don't trust you, it's the people that are pretending to be you that I don't trust. You know what I mean? It's that social engineering and that impersonation and stuff like that that we have to protect against. And it's very hard for us to tell the difference between the real user and the bad guy pretending to be the real user, and that resonates, and that helps, and the whole social engineering aspect behind a lot of these attacks is crucial, and the only way really to address that is to remove the privileges that the users have, so that they can't be used against you. But in terms of that cloud adoption question, because there was a degree of nervousness around the cloud from its inception around security, we've used that to our advantage and made sure that security was really baked in. So as part of that migration to the cloud, the recognition that we needed to get serious about security, that the perimeter is evaporated, we really used that and leveraged that to ensure that we got all the security capability that we needed from the outset, and it wasn't an afterthought. And to try and retrofit security is difficult or impossible. And so that's the key, is to be clear around what security controls you need and make sure that they're built in from the outset.
Gotcha. Excellent. Well, as I look at the time here, as always in these panel discussions, time has flown by, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time here for Moinul to deconstruct this real world data breach. So maybe I'll ask the three of you, starting with you, Mukesh. Any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or advice for attendees that are perhaps just starting their cloud journey and worried about security?
I think I would like to start with one learning which we got at is, like, I think cloud is going to be inevitable. I don't think we as a CISO, as a community, have any choice to say yes or no for a cloud journey. I think that has gone way long right now. Two things I want to just put it forward for people to consider. One is, like, yes, of course, I think you need to have a proper framework for cloud journey, which incorporates a processes, which incorporates the security technologies, and the framework should consider all the aspects, including the people, which is a fundamental for information security. In that, I think the technology should be available for you to have complete visibility and continuous monitoring on the cloud assets. That's one of the challenges which I see right now for most of the companies who is onboarding on the cloud journey. Second is about the people aspect, where the upskilling and maintaining the clear roles and responsibilities and ensure people do their job. I think the continuous monitoring along with this will help you actually to succeed in the cloud journey without any major security incidences.
Excellent. Thank you. John, any parting thoughts to kind of add here?
Yeah, I'd certainly back up the visibility of what's happening in your cloud environments, but also do your due diligence. So have that framework of your expectation of a cloud service. Can you offshore? Does it need to be onshore? And then really understand your requirements, and then do the due diligence of any cloud solution before you go too far with it, really.
Excellent. And then maybe we'll end where we're started with you, Doug.
Yeah, my main takeaway is security has got the attention now that it didn't have historically, because of all the breaches and things that are happening. It's a hot topic at board level. They recognize their roles and responsibilities. So it's our opportunity as the heads of security to shine and to provide that support and advice and inform those decisions that are being made. And so it's our opportunity to step forward and provide that expertise, and really make the most of this opportunity, because that window could close, so for everybody, really drive the conversation and make sure that the organization takes the appropriate pays the appropriate attention to this.
I love that. CISOs have been asking for years to get the attention of the executive team and the board of directors, and now they have it. So I guess your advice is don't squander the opportunity. Fantastic. That's a great note to end on here.